There was once a boy named Lin who lived in a quiet mountain village where clouds danced low over rooftops and the wind carried whispers from the trees. Lin was thoughtful, deep thinker, sensitive in the way that made him kind, but also in the way that made him suffer. He didn't talk about it much, but Lin carried things. Things people had said, things that had happened years ago. And he carried them like invisible stones in his backpack, weighing him down no matter where he went. If a classmate teased him, he'd replay it 100 times that night. If a friend ignored him, he'd wonder what he did wrong. For weeks, he'd smile on the outside, but inside, his mind was a storm he couldn't turn off. And the worst part, no one else could see it. He couldn't focus at school. He'd start chores, but forget what he was doing halfway through. It wasn't because he was lazy. It was because he was somewhere else, stuck in a moment that had already passed. One day, an old gardener noticed Lin sitting by the river alone, eyes glazed over. The man had worked with soil and silence his whole life. He said gently, "Sometimes, when the mind is too loud, it helps to visit someone who knows how to listen to the quiet." He handed Lin a small slip of paper with directions to a hermit monk who lived past the cedar forest near a temple carved into the rock. Lin didn't know why, but something about the old man's voice gave him hope. So, the next morning, he followed the trail until he reached the temple, tucked under a cliff where the sky opened wide. The monk greeted him with a bow, saying nothing, just gesturing for Lin to speak. And speak he did, about the noise in his head, the memories he couldn't let go of, the way even small things stuck to him like burrs on wool. The monk nodded, then stood up and walked away into another room. Lin sat in awkward silence. Minutes passed. Then the monk returned, holding nothing but a small, weathered bowl of water. He held it out and asked, "Lin, is this bowl heavy?" Lin shrugged. "Not really." The monk said, "If I hold it for 1 minute, no problem. If I hold it for an hour, my arm starts to ache. A day, my shoulder burns, my back hurts, but the bowl hasn't changed. Only my strain has." Lin blinked. "So, how do you stop the pain?" The monk smiled. "You put the bowl down." Lin stared at the bowl, then at the monk. The meaning slowly soaked in. The bowl was like his thoughts, his past, his regrets. They weren't getting heavier. He was just holding them too long. "You're not broken, Lin," the monk said gently. "You're just tired from carrying what doesn't need to be carried anymore." That night, Lin walked back through the cedar forest, lighter than he'd felt in years. Not because his past disappeared, but because for the first time he knew he could set it down. He still had thoughts, sure. Moments when his mind wandered back to old wounds. But now, instead of fighting them or replaying them endlessly, he'd breathe deep, acknowledge the thought, and let it float away like a leaf down the stream. He wasn't perfect. He didn't need to be. He just needed to remember. Peace doesn't come from erasing the past. It comes from learning how to stop gripping it so tight. And slowly, step by step, Lin grew into someone new. Not someone who had no pain, but someone who knew how to walk beside it without being pulled under. And in that, he found something far better than answers. He found peace.